guys, welcome back to another video. Well, a few days ago, I think it was about 5 days ago or 6 days ago, I released a video on whether or not it's a good time to get into this industry, and I shared some numbers from my own two companies. Now, I received this comment yesterday, and to be completely honest, it made me a little bit sad because this is the reality of many people out there. They ordered their truck, they started getting their authority, hoping to get into a booming, amazing market, and boom, the market crashes. So today's focus is just about that. What do you do if you got into this market too late? Ready? Let's go. Well, as always, I have a couple of announcements before we actually dive into the topic of today's video. Number one, I'm about a quarter way done with redoing or updating my dispatching course, and I believe it will be ready in about 1.5 to 2 weeks, so keep an eye out for that. Number two, I know I am super late on answering your guys' emails, and I'm so sorry, but honestly, redoing this whole dispatching course, plus trying to manage two companies, plus trying to stay afloat in this crazy market, yeah, I'm struggling here. I really appreciate your guys' patience with me, and I promise I'll get back to you this coming week.
We've all heard that before. Why don't you just be honest and say that I'm too lazy to answer emails? Oof.
Anyway, let's get back to the topic. You got your truck, you got everything set up, your permits are in order, you have your MC, DOT, insurance, DOC3 on file, and the market crashes. Now what?
Now you must go to the corner and start to cry. Trust me, it helps.
No, you start fighting. Funny little side note, I am completely familiar with this kind of situation because I have the worst luck with timing. I'm always either too early to something or way too late. For example, when we were buying our used trucks, we bought them at the peak of the market, aka at an obscene price. And now that we're thinking of selling one of them potentially to get a new piece of equipment, guess what? No dealership is even taking those trucks because they have too many on their lots because everyone is selling their trucks now. So my point is, trust me, I know what it feels like to miss that perfect window of opportunity.
I can't believe that I'm going to be the positive one here, but guys, remember, there is never a perfect time. You have to fight. Fight for your place under the sun. Don't be a crybaby.
Okay, enough of that positivity, thank you. Is it a crap time to get into this market? Yes, absolutely. But here are some things you can do in order to help yourself. Number one, know your brokers. One of the biggest downside of the market being the way it is that there are way too few loads and way too many trucks. In other words, brokers are not really motivated to work with newer carriers. After all, there are a ton of seasoned carriers fighting over loads. Why would a broker take a chance on a newer guy? So knowing which brokers work with new carriers will really help you out. TQL, for example, is a huge name in this industry and they have loads everywhere.
I don't like them.
They also happen to be one of the few brokers that work with completely new authorities, meaning you got your authority active yesterday, you can start hauling loads for TQL today.
I still don't like them.
Now, TQL doesn't have a good reputation in this industry because they tend to lowball and because their check calls are enough to drive the sanest people insane. But you know what? You've got to do what you got to do, so get set up with TQL and start hauling those loads. Now, some other brokers that work with new authorities are Uber Freight, and they pay you really quickly, within 2 to 5 days for free, so they don't charge you a specific fee to pay you so quickly. There's Convoy that also works with new carriers, also pays you relatively quickly. Then there's M2 Logistics, K&L Freight, Search Transportation, Spot Freight, Full Tilt Logistics, and many other smaller brokers out there who will work with new carriers. Now, there are some big names on the load board that you will see that do not work with completely brand new authorities. For example, JB Hunt requires 3 months of authority. Coyote requires 1 month of authority. And there are other brokers that are big names in this industry that require several months up to a year of authority to actually get you set up in their system. Number two, fuel card. I am so sorry to be a broken record here, but I just feel like this is a point worth repeating. Now, I'm attaching the RTS fuel card link down below just in case you decide to sign up with them. This is the fuel card we use for both of our companies, and I couldn't be happier with them. But the reality is, it's not just about getting a fuel card to get discounts at any location. It's about pre-planning your trips in order to get the lowest price possible on your way to pickup or delivery or wherever you're going. Now let me share my screen with you so you guys know what I'm talking about. So I know that a lot of you who watch every single one of my videos must be extremely sick and tired of seeing this map over and over again. This is the RTS fuel card map that shows you the fuel on your way so that you can find the best price for you. But I feel like it's so important to talk about this because after all, in this market, it's not just that the load prices are low, it's the fact that the expenses are eating away at the bottom line. And one of the biggest expenses is fuel. So let me show you what I mean when I say you have to pre-plan your route. So let's actually take the real life example. We are on a load on one of our reefers right now from Pennsylvania to Temple, Texas. Now, I'm not sure how to pronounce that place in Pennsylvania, but I know how it's written. So it's right here, Charleroi, I'm not sure, but it goes to Temple, Texas, this load, right? So here we go. Here is the route that RTS shows. Maybe you are going a different route. In this case, you can just choose a different route. I have keep trucking so I can see where my guy is. Here he is. He's right now driving through Washington, Pennsylvania. He's obviously going to go down the I-70 instead of taking the 79 down. So what we're going to do is we're going to click the I-70. This is his route. All right, pre-planning. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to choose the best fuel stations on the way. So first I'm going to look at the lowest price, and the lowest priced fuel is right here. It's 1,186 miles away, which I'm going to put in miles away, and it is $4.08. 4.08 per gallon. So this is the cheapest on the way. Now I know that my guy doesn't have enough fuel to drive 1,186 miles. So let's start looking for fuel that is a little bit closer so he can refuel on the way. So for example, another state, Arkansas, 918 miles away. That is too far away from him. Let's look at Missouri, 664 miles away. Okay, I like this one. It's $4.25 per gallon with the discount. So I'm going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to put in this place, $4.25 per gallon. So this is the refueling station that he will be refueling at first. And then from here, he's going to go here, which is going to be about another 600 miles away from this refueling station to fill up his tanks again. So now that we have this pre-planned and planned out, let me show you how big of a difference it can make. Let's say that you are driving and you see that you are low on fuel somewhere right here. You know you have to refuel somewhere in Indianapolis, right? And you have to find fuel ASAP. So Indianapolis, and now you have to find fuel on your way. That is on the I-70, not too far away, where you can refuel. And there's actually not much to choose from. Everything is way out of your way. There is Pilot for $5.25 or 26 cents. There is this one for $4.65. If you continue going down, there is this one for $5.20. See, what I'm trying to explain to you is if you're finding fuel at the last possible moment, you are going to end up paying more. It's better to pre-plan where you're going to refuel before you even start moving. That way you know you're getting the cheapest fuel on the way. And if you have low fuel, you know that you don't have to fill up full tanks. You can fill up half tanks until you get to a cheaper fuel place. Number 3, know the market for your specific equipment type.
Okay, so before you even start with this, how the heck are you supposed to know the market when it changes on a daily basis?
That is absolutely true. The market is doing crazy things right now where it's almost impossible to predict what tomorrow will look like. But the best way I have found to understand the market a little bit better is to use the market maps provided by DAT Power. Let me show you my screen. So I showed this map many times in previous videos, but DAT has actually updated the market maps. So if you weren't convinced to get this tool before, now I would say would be a great time if you have spare cash to invest into this map, because it will give you a better overview of the market on a daily basis or on the prior 30 days or prior week, whatever it is. So to give you an idea of how it works, now the market map has inbound versus outbound freight. Inbound means loads going into a market area. Outbound means loads going out of a market area. So just to give you an idea, for example, I chose reefer here. Here is outbound, here is inbound, and both of these maps are showing the prior 8 days. So you can see that in California, there are a ton of outbound loads. There are a ton of loads going out of California into different markets. But there are not a lot of loads going into California. So what does that mean? Well, it means that going into California, you will get a really bad rate per mile. Whereas going out of California, because there's so many loads, you are going to get a higher rate per mile. Now, something else I want to show you about this map, there is the search right here. All you have to do, let's put in equipment type, and let's put in San Diego, California here. This is the originating state, and let's say it's going to somewhere in Texas. Now, the rate type, we will choose spot market, and let's search and look at how cool this thing is. You can choose, I like to use the calendar. This is the rate cast, meaning what DAT predicts the rates to be like. So you can see on Monday, this is the predicted rate per mile with the high and the low. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. You see that DAT predicts that the rate per mile will be higher next Monday than it will be this coming Monday. So it's a pretty cool little tool. Now, there are other general rules that I try to follow loosely. Number one, I try not to go to the West Coast because the West Coast is pretty much dead. The only state that is worth anything in terms of loads is California. But the problem is the fuel prices are some of the highest in the country. So basically, you end up not really making that much anyway. Number two, I started trying to avoid the East Coast as well because the market in the East Coast went down, it got worse, and the tolls there are crazy. And number three, I tried to pick lanes that avoid or minimize the mountainous areas because mountains going up and down, it kills your fuel economy. Your truck starts to eat up a ton of fuel, and that is an extra expense.
Basically, what this genius is trying to tell you is that you are only allowed to go from New Mexico to Texas. After all, the road is flat, there are no tolls. Guys, if you keep listening to her, you're gonna go bankrupt.
No, I'm not saying that you cannot run any of those kinds of lanes through the mountains or to the West Coast or whatnot. I'm just saying be mindful of your cost per mile. Be mindful of how much it will cost you to actually run a specific load. After all, it's all about income versus costs. Number four, be mindful of your deadhead. Now, this is something that people don't really talk a lot about, but the market is crap not only because the fuel prices went up and the load prices went down, it's also because the loads seem to be spread out now. They're spread out more, which means that you have to do a ton of deadhead. And deadhead, even though you're running empty miles, you're still running your truck, aka spending fuel. And that is an extra cost for your company. So be mindful of the deadhead miles and always calculate, is this load worth it in terms of your cost per mile? Does it cover your costs per mile? If yes, wonderful. If no, time to rethink that load. Now, speaking of costs per mile, number five, know your costs per mile. Now, I know I have mentioned this before, and I even shared a spreadsheet with you guys that you can use in order to figure out your costs per mile. But now I just don't feel like that spreadsheet is neat enough. It looks very messy to me. So I actually created a calculator that will be, in my opinion, much easier to use. Let me show you. Really quickly, I want to show you how this calculator works. I feel like it's much neater than the spreadsheet calculator that I shared with you guys. So I hope this helps you out figure out your cost per mile. So let's go over it super quickly. Number one, the first field is your gross income. Let's say month one, you made $25,000. Unfortunately, this calculator doesn't have dollar amounts. It just gives numbers. Then let's say you traveled around 9,800 miles. Then we look at fixed costs right here. We have fixed costs, variable costs, and then here is where all the calculations will come in. So for fixed costs, number one is truck payments. If you don't have any truck payments, just leave it at zero. Let's say you do have truck payments. You also, let's say, have trailer payments. Insurance, everyone should have. That's a fixed cost. Then there's the electronic logging device. Usually it's a monthly fee. Sometimes you get to pay upfront for a year, but if it's a monthly fee, let's say it's $50 per month. If you're using a load board and you're paying monthly for it, you would put it in here. Now, what you would do here is, I know everyone's business is somewhat different. You might have fixed costs that other businesses don't. So let's say you have another fixed cost for, I don't know, something. So you would something one, and you would put that fixed cost right here. Let's say it's $50 per month. Then something two, and you would put the fixed cost here. Let's say it's $80 per month, and that's it. You're done with your fixed costs. Then you go to your variable costs. So of course, variable costs can include things like maintenance, fuel, tolls is something that happens quite often. Unfortunately, let's say you had $357 worth of tolls. Taxes refer to the trucking taxes like IFTA, state taxes 2290, etc., Oregon taxes. So let's say you had no taxes this month. Scales, cat scales. Let's say you had a couple of truck washes that were about $120 total. If you're hiring drivers, you would put the payroll cost here, and that would usually include your workers' compensation and all of that. And then of course there are extra variable costs because again, everyone's business is different. So let's say you also hire a dispatching company to dispatch you, and you paid, let's say, $2,500 to the dispatching. They charge 10% of the gross. Then let's say you had tools for the truck. Let's say there were some permits as well, and you can put in different types of costs here. And then at the bottom, this is what you get. You get your total cost. Now again, I'm sorry, I could not make it show a dollar sign and actually do a thousand separator, but here the total cost is $18,070.90. The total cost per mile is $1.84. Now the total fixed cost is right here, $3,672, and this is the fixed cost per mile. The variable cost is over $14,000, $1.47 here. This is the total gross income, $25,000, and this is the total revenue per mile. And of course, at the bottom, you have your profit. So your profit for this kind of month would be $6,929 or 71 cents per mile. Now, this will really help you figure out what kind of loads you need to get. If your total cost per mile, let's say, is $1.84, then you know that in order to make some money, you have to be booking loads over $1.84. Now, of course, this total cost per mile will change month by month because it depends on your variable costs. You know that your fixed costs are always 37 cents per mile, but your variable costs will change. As the fuel prices go down, your variable costs might go down. Maybe you have a month with a ton of maintenance, and then your variable costs will start to go up. But this will give you more or less of an idea, and it will help you predict, and it will help you understand what kind of rate per mile with deadhead you need to be booking in order to cover that total cost per mile. Now, I will of course share the link down below under this video so you can benefit from this calculator. Number 6, try to find your own freight. I keep saying this. There is not much you can do to cut expenses in the trucking industry. If you decide to cut fuel, for example, you're going to stop. If you decide to cut the maintenance expenses, you are going to stop or end up driving a very wobbly truck. But there is one cost that you can cut, and that is the dispatching fee.
Aren't you making a course on dispatching?
Yes, I am, but that does not mean that I think that new owner-operators should hire a dispatcher if they can handle it themselves. Here's the thing. A good dispatcher can make you extremely efficient. But if you're one of those people who can multitask, I suggest, at least for now, while the market is doing its crazy thing, try to dispatch yourself and save on that dispatching cost. Number 7 or 8? 7. Stay as liquid as possible. Now, liquidity is extremely helpful when the market is doing the crazy loop-de-loop it's doing right now.
You mean like this?
No, not actually liquid like a jellyfish. I mean, your cash should be liquid and not tied up somewhere else. Here's the thing. Right now, because of the market situation, brokers, no matter how great their credit score is, are pretty much always late with payments. And expenses have to be paid on time. In other words, you have all these expenses with money going out, but not enough money coming in because everyone is late, aka you have a cash flow problem. Now, there are a few ways you can stay liquid. Number one, which is pretty obvious, don't invest all of your net profit into new equipment. Tomorrow you might have a huge maintenance expense that you will not be able to pay for because all of your cash is tied up in that future equipment that you're planning to buy. Now, number two is use a factoring company. Now, I will always recommend RTS. Yes, it's the same company that provides us with our fuel cards. RTS makes everything super simple. We do factor some loads through them for our baby company. They charge anywhere between 2.5 to 3% of each load. But let me show you what their dashboard looks like. This is how the dashboard looks. So all you would do is you would go to invoices. You would basically create an invoice. You would put the invoice number, the customer name, meaning the broker. The PO number is the load number, the amount, and you would upload the bill of lading, your invoice, the rate confirmation all here. And within 1 or 2 days, you get paid minus the 2.5 to 3% that RTS charges. Now, one of the things I really love about the RTS Pro system is their credit checker. So when you go to check a broker's credit, let me just move this aside. For example, you have a broker and you're not sure whether RTS Pro will factor a load with them. Let's say you're working with TQL, right? So you're going to search for TQL. And there we go, Total Quality Logistics, A rating. That means that they will work with them. Now, let's say you are working with something like Northeastern Freight, right? I know that they don't factor, and you will get a rating like this. That means that RTS will not factor a load from Northeastern Freight Inc. You can also search brokers by their MC number or DOT number, and it just makes it super simple. And it helps you stay liquid, especially if you have a cash flow problem. It's a good idea to start looking into factoring. I will leave a link down below where you can sign up with them if you're interested. Number 8. Don't be too picky about loads. Now, I cannot believe I'm saying this because I'm all for negotiating and trying to get the highest rate per mile. But you know what? Sometimes you end up in such a crappy market area that trying to negotiate will actually cost you loads. So here's what you have to do. If you're in a market area that you see is not very good in terms of loads, when you call a broker, listen carefully. If you hear other brokers in the background, tons of phone calls, a lot of conversations going, or especially if you call a broker and they're like, hey, hold on a moment, that means that they're busy. There are a ton of carriers calling them about loads. In those cases, if a load seems okay and it can cover your costs, just grab it. Don't negotiate, because if you don't grab it, someone else will. Now, I know I will have a ton of hate for this comment because it's true that carriers like this who don't negotiate and agree to the lowest price are the ones who are partially responsible for driving the rates down. However, this is really about survival right now. This is not a time to really have grandiose ideas about how much money you can make. It's just about keeping your head above water. So if you're in a market like, let's say, Connecticut or Maine, where there are absolutely no loads, just call the broker and agree to the rate if it's a good rate and covers your cost. If it doesn't cover your cost, that's a completely different story. Finally, be prepared for this crappy cycle to end and for a new, better cycle to begin, but don't get overexcited when it does. Good times will come. They always do. Everything is in a cycle, and once one cycle ends, another one begins. Now, when the market gets better and the money starts flowing in and you're so happy, you're doing so great, don't get overexcited and start investing all of that cash you made into equipment and tying up your money. Just remember, just like a bad cycle will end, the good cycle will also end and a bad one will follow. This is just the nature of this industry. So be smart, put some of that money away, build a strong safety net for the next time a bad cycle begins. The more prepared you are for the worst case scenario, the better off you will be. The saying I live by, and some people hate the fact that I live by it, is hope for the best, but always prepare for the worst. Anyway, I hope you guys found this video somewhat helpful. I hope you learned something new, and I'll see you in the next one.